Hello, class. Professor Zinos here. I'm on the road, so I apologize for my somewhat casual appearance. Um, it's the week 4 wrap up. So, in this past week, you all were to decide on which countries you were to include in your study, and I believe that everybody pretty much excluded 3 countries, and with the shortest timeline being Brazil. And of course, I asked just about everybody in different ways, depending on how you phrased it and how you came to your decision, as to what would need to change, if anything could change, to include Brazil or any of the other countries for that matter, the other two, which would have been India and China, which were the other two that most people excluded. And some of you sort of dove into it and went in somewhat different directions with it. And that is that if the enrollment timelines were extended, you would very seriously consider it. Others would not consider Brazil at all for a lot of the other reasons that I was hoping that you would be thinking about. Now, it wasn't something that was asked. It will be asked in assignment 1, that is to include some additional factors, but I'll get into that in just a moment. But in a case like this where you're thinking about countries that you're going to include, it's not just the stated timeline that you would that you need to have to be able to begin enrollment. Obviously, there are a lot of other factors to include, and some of you all talked about the lack of stability in those timelines, the lack of stability in some of the other factors like drug importation, like in the case of China, that some sites just didn't have the training, the GCP training, that would be necessary in order to produce quality data, things like that. So I think for the most part, everybody pretty much understood where I was going with those types of questions, with that line of questioning. So overall, I thought everybody did pretty well. Now, moving on to next week, there is not a discussion board, but your first assignment is due. Hopefully everybody has been looking at it. And I cannot stress this enough. I'll say this right out of the gate. Please follow the instructions look at them and be sure that you've met all the criteria that are asked for in the assignment. As I'm sure that you all know, you're to develop an allocation form, or plan rather, for a phase 3 study, and you are to come up with 5 additional factors that you would be taking into consideration, that you're to discuss, that would help you decide whether or not you're going to include those countries. As always, the goal, as with any study, is to achieve the protocol prescribed number of enrolled subjects within the prescribed timeline, and of course within your allotted budget. Now, in choosing countries that will help you achieve that, there are these other factors that you have to take into consideration. And while some people will consider them more important, others won't. And so, come up with a plan, come up with ideas, and be prepared to defend them. All of this, as you know, is building on everything that we've been leading up to, especially in the last weeks 3 and 4. The population is considered to be challenging, so keep that in mind. It's not going to be easy where you can just come up and pick the easiest countries. You know, you're going to go with the U.S. and I don't know, some of the other easy ones, U.S., Canada, that sort of thing. To include that you have a level of stability, and so you can't just expect to be able to achieve your enrollment goals from just choosing a couple of countries. And that comes into play, and this is where the difficulty and this is where the reality of choosing countries comes in. Because if it were easy, then everybody would do it. With that said, good luck, and I look forward to reading everybody's assignments.